मधुर मनोहर अतीव सुंदर ये सर्व विद्या की राजधानी राजधानी।
Well, my dear students, this is our 23rd lecture in the series of mechanics of metal forming, and if you recall the previous lecture number 22, where we started with the examples to explain the problems, various problems, that we could learn the mechanics and the aspects of slip line theory, where we construct slip line. And if you recall the Henke's first equation and Henke's equations, and then Geringer's equations, and then the construction of slip line, either the numerical method or graphical method, and then the two examples we took for the frictionless cases, where so let us continue further with more examples, so that it for the difficult problems how the slip line theory is being applied. So let us see the third case, where the indentation of a slip line is theory is used for indentation of a semi-infinite mass by a frictionless wedge shaped punch. So look at this figure number 21A basically. So let us consider the indentation of a semi-infinite mass by a smooth wedge shaped punch of, say, the angle, the semi angle have alpha, where and as the wedge penetrates into the material, the piling up occurs on either side of the punch, so that geometric similarity is maintained. It is assumed therefore that the slip line field does not change in shape with increasing penetration of the wedge, but merely its size increases. So let us see the figure number 21A, where a slip line field for the depth of penetration D is shown, and if you look at A, B, C, D, E, which is the deformation zone, since the field is symmetrical, only one half of the system is being taken, it is being considered for illustrating the things. So for a frictionless punch, as you are aware, the slip lines, that is AC and BC, must meet the punch surface at 45. That is true, as whatever we learned from the 4 types of surfaces that we come across in slip line. So the point A is identified from the consideration that piled up material AEF is equal to the volume of the material, that is BFG, displayed from the punch. So AE is now the free surface, and the slip line AD and DE must meet at 45 degree, therefore, because it is a free surface. The slip line field therefore consists of 2 isosceles triangle, that is triangle ABC and triangle ADE, with ACD as a centered fan of angle theta. The hodograph for this particular proposed field, which is shown here in figure 21b, look at this. As the punch is punched down with unit velocity, as I told you, in all the cases we are going to start with unit velocity penetration. So, the material in block B, and there is material movement blockwise. If you recall the example 1 or example 2, we located different blocks, number 1, 2, 3, 4, like that. So, here in this figure, the material in block 2 shear parallel to AB and BC. The block C and block number 4, they shear along AC. You can look here, and you see that this is what is the depth D up to B, and this is what is the free surface, and this is what is the wedge shape punch. So, you can propose another kind of slightly different starting slip line. So, as you know, but this slip line initially that you, if you recall, that you propose is to be kinematically admissible, and that you have to apply the condition and satisfy, and then only you can go ahead for drawing the velocity field, that is hodograph. So, if you look here, so if you see that they shear, that is the block 2, which is shearing parallel to AB and BC, and similarly in block 3 and 4 they shear along AC and CD and AD and DE respectively. You can look here in the figure. The velocity of block 4 is therefore parallel to DE, which is in conformity with the deformation pattern and the field proposed in, and therefore the proposed field is kinematically admissible. That is true. Now, that is the second step. The slip lines are identified from the consideration of stresses at the free surface, as you know, and here it is at E where sigma 2 is 0, and the other principal stress is compressive. You can look here. Therefore, DE is an alpha line, that is true, because sigma 2 is 0 at E. The pressure PE, if you see small PE at E is equal to K, which is the shear stress of the material. You can use the Mohr circle diagram. So, from Mohr circle diagram, the pressure at E is equal to, which is PE at E, which is equal to K, and that is from the Mohr circle you can look here. Since line DE is straight, therefore, what we can expect, that is PD is equal to PE and that is equal to K, and from D to C if you go, so the alpha line rotates clockwise through an angle theta, and therefore we can apply the Henke's equation, and if you apply the Henke's equation we can get that PC plus twice K minus theta, it will be equal to PD and that is equal to K, or you can further write that PC, if you simplify this, so PC becomes K 1 plus twice theta. Slip lines AC and BC are straight, you can see, and therefore PA and PB, that is the pressure on point A and point B, is equal to pressure on C, that is PC, and that is all equal to K 1 plus twice theta. The principal stress, which is normal to AB, is same as the normal pressure Q on AB and can therefore be obtained as Q, which is the pressure, which is equal to K plus K 1 plus 2 theta, and that is nothing but twice k 1 plus theta. And using the Morse circle diagram again, the load per unit width, that is capital P, to cause penetration of the punch can now be evaluated. So, it can be evaluated like, that is capital P, that is the load per unit width, can be calculated, which is equal to twice Q AB and sin alpha, or simply we can say now in the normalized form that P by 2k, and that is equal to 2 1 plus theta AB sin alpha, and it is a function of alpha, therefore you can see in the equation, and it is also function of the depth of the penetration d. The variation of P by 2k with the semi angle alpha can be drawn. So, if we take the different angles of alpha, and if one can plot the P by 2 theta P by 2k, and on the x axis alpha can be taken. So, one can see this variation has been shown here in figure number 22, you can see here. So, we take the alpha value, say 30 degree, 60 degree, 90 degree and 120 degree, and then the corresponding P by 2k value is obtained as 1.5, and then it is somehow 1.9, and then around 9 it is around 2.6, something like 7, something like that, and that is how this variation one can see here, that is start from 0. So, this is what P by 2k, now it can be used for that is the load, and one can it can be used directly for selecting motors power and all that. So, that is the simple use of slip line theory. Second, let us take another example where the plane strain compression with a perfectly rough platens, a set of two platen upper and lower are done. Let us take this here, and the previous figure, if you see 22, you should mark the figure number 21, sorry 21, you should mark B, the from where the different zones like 1, 2, 3, 4 are marked from one half the section, and then the photograph is drawn. So, you can, same way we explained last time the construction of photogram, we continue here also. So, let us come back to the problem where we have a plane strain compression with perfectly rough platen, and look at this figure number 23. The slip line field for compression between two rough platens are chosen here. The slip lines are started from the interface, therefore, where they meet the platens at 0 degree and 90 degree. They must also meet the axis of the symmetry at 45, since there can be no shear stress on the plane. So, plane of symmetry. So, these two conditions are fulfilled by drawing circular arcs, if you recall here. So, you can look at the figure, see here, this is what is the height of 2h is taken, and half of the, that is the, and the total width is taken as 2b. So, one half is considered, so height is 2h and this is b. So, if you come back, so these conditions are fulfilled by drawing the circular arcs, and we can continue drawing the arcs from point A and B with AC as the radius. One can go on doing, and AC is the line which is passing through A and intersect the axis of symmetry at 45 degree at C. The slip line can now be extended, and if you see into figure 23, using the chart method, which is described already. So if you look at the figure number 23A, all charts are known and these can be smoothened subsequently to get the slip line filled, complete slip line filled. In this proposed slip line fill, the circular fan centered slip line, that is the CC3, has been divided into segments of theta, which is equal to 15 degree, and for better accuracy similar segments of say 5 degree may also be taken, but it will take more number of zones, no problem. But if B by H is taken as say 3.6, the two axes of symmetry will intersect at point F, making it the center point, and slip line fill for various values of B by H can also be drawn by taking appropriate values of theta therefore. And so now the second is to see that the admissibility of the proposed slip line field is verified by constructing the hodograph. So if you look at figure number 23B here, so a hodograph from this proposed slip line is being drawn. Since the field is symmetrical, only 1/4 of the field is enough for consideration. So if you look at in the proposed field, that is AC3 D2 E1 F is a rigid zone and moves with the plane with one velocity. Okay. As the upper plane is moved downward with unit velocity, the rigid zone moves with it, and this is represented by what is being represented here in figure as O1 on the hodograph. When particles from block 1 crosses the discontinuity, that is E1F, they are sheared along E1F. The absolute velocity of block 2, however, must be horizontal along EF because of symmetry. These identify point 2 on the hodograph. Therefore, when particles from block 1 crosses E1 D1, E1 D2 and enter in the block 3, that is the next block, they are sheared along E1 D2 and E1. Since no change in the tangential velocity discontinuity is possible along a slip line, so one can see that here, if you look at again the figure, the different regions, if you look at, and if we identify the region accordingly, if we see here, so this is what is it will be, since the change in the tangential velocity discontinuity is possible along a slip line, therefore 12 and 13 must be equal, that is what is there. And similarly points 4 and 5 are identical by moving along the slip line, that is F E1 D2 C3 A. When particles from block 3, that is it enters from block 3 to block 6, they are sheared along D1 E, but the symmetric condition provides absolute velocity along DE. These two directions identify point 5. When particle moves from block 4 to 7, directions C2 E D1 and D1 are used for locating point C, point 7 in fact in the figure related hodograph, which is located as point 7. So, likewise we proceed, and proceeding in this manner from one block to the another block, and from the next block the hodograph is completed, and until we reach the position 11 we continue the process. So, for the slip line field to be compatible, the absolute velocity of block 11 must be horizontal, and it should be outward and of magnitude which is equal to b by h, and that is that we started to be 3.6. So, the b by h value must be equal to 3.6 in this particular case. Since this is the case, the proposed field is, once it is, because it is being satisfied, so this particular proposed field is kinematically admissible. Once it is admissible, then we can go ahead, and the next step is to identify the alpha and beta lines, and this is done from the consideration of principal stresses at point C in the rigid block 11. So, here if you see, the horizontal principal stress, which is sigma 1, is 0, and the vertical principal stress sigma 2 is compressive, and therefore sigma 1 is the algebraically greatest principal stress, and AC becomes the alpha line. Therefore, that is the simple way. So, the hydrostatic pressure, if we say that the hydrostatic pressure PC at point C is obtained, one can obtain as K, and because if you use the Morse circle diagram, previous figure, so because sigma 1 is 0 here, so between C and C3 the beta lines rotate through plus 45 degree, and therefore one can find out the pressure on point C, that is PC, and minus 2K multiplied by plus pi by 4, and that would be equal to PC, and that is what is equal to K, or we can further simplify as PC 3, that is the pressure in the region point C, and that is equal to K 1 plus pi by 2. So, the slip line, that is AC3, is straight, therefore the one can then find out the pressure which is equal to PC3, and that is equal to K 1 plus pi by 2, and it is clear that normal pressure P on the platen along AC3 is same as the hydrostatic pressure, and thus we can write that PAC3 is equal to K 1 plus pi by 2, or simply we can say that PAC3 by 2K, and this is equal to 1 by 2 in bracket 1 plus pi by 2, and that is what is equal to 1.29. Similarly, between C3 and D2, the alpha line is rotated through an angle pi by almost through an angle minus pi by 12, and therefore we can say that PD2 plus twice K minus pi by 12 is equal to PC3, and it is equal to K 1 plus pi by 2, or simply we can say that it is PD2 is equal to K 1 plus 2 by 3 pi, and in a similar way one can have the PE1 which is equal to K 1 plus 5 by 6 pi. And if we see the figure number 24 here, where the distribution of this pressure is shown, one can see. So, this is what is the point A, C3, D2, E1 and F. So, you see at the A the pressure is around 2.57, likewise whatever we calculated. At C3 it is 3.09, at D2 it is 3.69, and it is F is 4.19. So from the end A to F the pressure goes on increasing, and therefore one can write down that the Pf similarly from the previous one is equal to K1 plus pi. So the normal pressure distribution along AC3 D2 E1 F, it is has been shown here in the pressure distribution curve. The total vertical force can be obtained from this by resolving the forces on the slip line in the vertical direction therefore, and referring to figure next figure 25, the total vertical force, that is delta F on the element small element delta S, can be calculated, and therefore it can be calculated as small delta F which is equal to K sin psi ds, because it is on the small area of ds, plus P cos psi ds. So if you integrate, the total pressure can be obtained, that is the total pressure F. So one can integrate on C3F, and therefore the total pressure can be written as K integral sin psi ds and plus P cos psi ds, and that is equal to K over the integral dy plus integral P dx, and that is equal to Kh plus integral Pc3 plus 2k psi, and that is what is multiplied by dx, and therefore one can find out that is the total force F divided by 2k equals h by 2 plus Pc3 by 2k x plus integral psi dx. The mean normal pressure, that is Pc3 bar F, which is acting on C3F, can now be evaluated from the previous equation, and so it can be evaluated as Pc3F divided by 2k, and that is equal to 2 summation over the summation psi delta x plus h divided by 2x, where h is less than 5 and x is taken as 3.6 multiplied by, therefore x would be 3.6 multiplied by 5 minus 2 pi, so that the summation, that is psi delta x, can be calculated as the summation of these three terms over the different, so like psi delta x t2 over 6 distance. So this is the small element has been taken ds, which was discussed earlier, and ds, the components are delta x and delta y, and pressure is acting here. This is the shear stress acting, and this is what is the angle psi of the interest, and therefore the mean pressure on the whole platen, that is the P bar, can now be easily calculated by evaluating this one, that is P bar by 2k can now be evaluated as P bar AC3 divided by 2k multiplied by B minus x plus P bar C3F divided by 2kx, and that is divided, whole division by, it is divided by B. And if from the previous example where we took the value of h as 2.5 and from that is calculated as 4.42 plus 2.5 and divided by 11.0 plus 1.29 when it is all together calculated. So that gives out from the actual measurement, that gives out 1.92, and this is what is has been shown, and once you calculate here from the mean pressure and we calculate, so this comes out to be 1.29 multiplied by 3.5 plus 1.92 multiplied by 5.5 divided by 9.0, and that is what is equal to 1.66. So this is what is your first case of the problem, and there. So let us start with the second problem, second example, and let us take situation where the drawing of rectangular strip with with frictionless taper die is taken, and the tapered in the sense when the if you look at this particular that is figure 26, where a rectangular strip is taken, and here if you look at the R, which is your the value which is now taken as which is less than 2 sin alpha divided by 1 plus 2 sin alpha. So this is what is the tapered angle taken. So let us consider the drawing of a rectangular strip with a frictionless taper die of semi-cone angle alpha, and this what has been shown here in figure number 26a. If you look here, only one half of the system is being shown, since it is quite symmetrical about the center line. So one half is enough. Since the die is frictionless, the slip line field is initiated at the die surface with slip line AC and BC, which is inclined to AB at 45 degree, which is shown here. So with A and B as center, one can now draw the fan centered field, and therefore it is constructed and extended using Chord method again to meet the center line at F. So choosing angle CAD and CBC1, let us take it as 10 degree. The slip line CD and CC1 are identified, and it is extended to locate point D1. So next point, that is E2 D2 and E3 D3 and F are located in sequence likewise. So the proposed slip line field has been there in the figure 26a, and it is being constructed, one can see, by choosing 10 degree interval, but for the better result one can go lesser angle, say for an example 5 degree and of interval, and maybe lesser also, but you know, making the small angle efforts are more. So after the chart methods and charts are drawn, here you see a smooth curve is drawn through the intersection point to get the final field, which is shown here in 26b. So slip line, if you see here, the slip line F3E and D3F meet the axis of symmetry at 45 degree, so that there is no resultant shear stress along the axis. This condition fixes the extent of the two fan centered field. You also please notice that this in figure A 26a, the velocity is taken as one on the this side. See, this side it is height is h1 drying, because it is drying, so hb, and on the other side, right hand side, it is ha, and this is what is the ab, the dye portion, and these are the points c, c1, d1, d2, d3, and f is on the center line. Before drying, the velocity is taken as unit as 1, and after it becomes 1 by 1 minus r, and so these centered, fan centered drying is there, and this is what is being shown as B, the smooth slip line field. Alright. So this is what is the condition, the axis, the extent of the two fan centered field, if we take, that is the angles phi 1 and phi 2 are fixed, and the suitable equal interval is chosen to complete the field, and likewise it has been. Once this particular proposed slip line is filled, the hodograph for the proposed field is being drawn, and it has been shown here in 26C. So now if you look at the figure C here, this is what is the angle alpha, that, and these are the points A and B locating the different regions, region 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12, 13, 14, all those things, and then one can and if you see a particle moving with unit velocity in region 1, and when it enters the block 2, it is sheared, which is parallel to E3f and D3f on crossing the velocity discontinuity Bf, which is moving horizontally with a final velocity which is equal to 1 by 1 minus r. Thus points 1, 2 and 3 can be identifiable, therefore it is quite obvious. The tangential velocity discontinuity along AF must remain same, that is the velocity which is normal to the slip line must remain unchanged, and similarly the normal velocity along slip line BF must remain unchanged. Therefore, the velocity of block, that is 4, 5, 6 and 7 are known. Therefore, these points are obtained by drawing appropriate parallel lines. For example, if we take the 4, the point 4 is identified by drawing 1, 4 and 3, 4 which is parallel to E2, E3 and E3, D2. 7 is identified by drawing 2, 7 and 3, 7 which is parallel to C3, D3 and D2, D3, and so on we can continue. Similarly, a particle entering block 8 is sheared along to D1, D2 and C2, D2. The same procedure is followed for all other blocks like block 8, block 9 and all that, and the hodograph can be extended and constructed completely, and this hodograph, it is a kind of mesh by mesh way construction we get. The intersection can be later joined by smooth curve instead of a chart, and if you look at in this photograph, the exit velocity was used to be complete the diagram, and the correct solution should indicate the velocity vector, that is 011 to be O11 to be parallel to the die face, that will show that it is the things are okay, the construction is okay. Since this is the case, the proposed field is kinematically proposed because it is now coming as. So, this proposed field is kinematically admissible and that is correct one. So, the slip line can be identified by considering the principal stresses at F now. The principal normal stress at F is compressive, while the principal stress along the axis and is tensile on the exit side, one can see. Therefore, algebraically greatest principal stress acts along the axis with which identifies AF and BF as alpha and beta lines respectively. To determine the drying stress, because that is the problem we have to find. So, to determine this particular drying stress which is required for drying, initiate the drying, in fact, the pressure at some point in the field must be known. Therefore, the pressure at F cannot be obtained directly, since both entry and the exit slip lines are not straight. So, however, PF, that is the point F, the pressure on F can be obtained in an indirect manner as like here. So, to get this value, the procedure can be just similar to the situation earlier we did. So, let G be any point on the alpha line, that is AF, and let us use the figure number 27 here, where the rotation of slip line psi dash is clockwise from the direction at point F. So, one can now use the Henke's equation, and that gives Pg plus 2k minus psi dash, and that is equal to Pf, or simply it is Pg is equal to Pf plus twice k psi dash. So, the resolved stresses on the element of length ds, if you look, are indicated here in figure 27. So, one can see here, that is, this is what is the surface ds, length of the surface, and dx horizontal component and dh is the vertical component, and this is what the resolution of the at point G is shown. So, this is what is the pressure G, Pg, K, and this is the angle psi dash, one can see here in and that is what is the stresses at point G on the surface ds is taken. So, the total force now can be calculated. So, the total force acting over the boundary, that is A, E1, E2, E3, F, must be equal to the back tension, that is the sigma xb, or over the integral from 0 to hb sigma x dh, that is the back tension, that is, and in absence of back tension, therefore, when the sigma xb is 0, when there is no back tension, both the cases may occur. So, when there is no back tension, that is sigma xb is 0, the resolution of the stresses can be found out, and it is found as over integral Pg sin pi by 4 plus psi dash ds minus integral k cos pi by 4 plus psi dash ds, and this is what is to be 0, and therefore, one can further write as integral Pf plus twice k psi dash sin pi by 4 plus psi dash ds minus k cos pi by 4 plus psi dash ds, and that is what is equal to 0. So, if you look at figure 27 again, the pressure Pf can therefore be evaluated, and the pressure at any point therefore on AF, any point on therefore on AF can be evaluated. So, if you go back again to the figure 26, so between E1 and C, the beta line rotates anticlockwise through an angle phi 1, and therefore PC is equal to PE 1 plus 2K phi 1, and since AC and BC are straight slip lines, and therefore PA becomes equal to PB, and that is equal to PC. The principal stress sigma 2 on the die face is equal to the die pressure Q, and it can be easily obtained using Morse circle, as you recall. So, it can be obtained that Q is equal to sigma 2, and that is equal to PA plus K, and that is further equal to PE1 plus twice K phi 1 plus K, and therefore the alpha line, that is AF, between F and E1 rotates clockwise through an angle phi 2 on the other hand, for corresponding to the alpha line, and therefore one can write that PE1, which is equal to PF plus twice K phi 2, and the die pressure similarly Q is equal to PF plus twice K phi 1 plus phi 2 plus K. The angle phi 1 and phi 2 in fact and including alpha have relation, you know. So, one can see here from figure 26a, where alpha can be calculated as phi 2 minus phi 1, and it can be then utilized here. So, when the drying stress, that is the sigma XA can now be calculated, that is the drying stress required. So, can now be evaluated by just equating the drying force to the longitudinal component of the die pressure Q, and taking both die face and the unit width, and that gives your, if you multiplied that is the area, so that is HA multiplied by sigma XA, and that would be equal to 2Q AB sin alpha, and that would be equal to 2Q in bracket HB minus HA, and therefore sigma XA is equal to twice Q HB minus HA and divided by HA. The reduction R, which he explained earlier, you know, the reduction is defined as HB minus HA divided by HA. So, because the initially when the drying on this side, the HB height of, and on the other side when it comes back after drying, HA. So, this is what is R defined, and therefore one can find out the HA value in terms of R, and that is simply equal to 1 minus R multiplied by HB, and the equation therefore for drying stress can be written as sigma XA equals 2Q R divided by 1 minus R, and this is what we were interested to find out, the drying stress. So, these example shows that we are able to calculate the drying stress, and in the previously when we calculate the P by 2K value, that is the pressure, and this can be used for designing the processes. But please remember that the slip line field theory has a limitation. People have tried to extend it for 3D cases, but it has been very tedious, and drawing with the method explained, it becomes further, and once the numerical methods, more accurate numerical methods like upper bound, and then later the finite element method appeared, it become better result and faster, and for complex situation as including the 3D situation, and that is how the slip line method is now today. It is not in use, but this was what has been the starting point, and when it was easier for people to calculate. And if you refer textbook like Johnson and Miller, and the other book, the limit analysis book, the slip line field, Mendelssohn and all those things, you may get many other problems. So I understand that you can try with some more problems, and you can see the applicability of the slip line theory. No doubt this has been used quite longer time, the slip line field theory, but probably because of the more better methods like upper bound and appeared, FEM appeared, then, and that is how. So in the next from the next lecture we would be further discussing the other modeling techniques. The slab method we would take up, because that was left last time. So, and then we will further upper bound method and related issues we will continue. So, but please remember that behind all this discussion, the motive is to give you the basic concept, that is the mechanics part of that, and wherein for all further, when we go for the technological aspect, that will be utilized at step and step, at various step of the problems and solving. So with this motive, please again remember that there are problems, objective problems kept for your testing. So you may try by evaluating yourself with the objective type problems and answering them. So once again I would like to thank you for hearing the lecture very patiently and raising certain queries and questions. So thank you once again, and with hope to meet you all in further next lecture.